Okay, everyone, have a great meeting.
Oh, thank you, Mariel, and welcome to the Librarian Toolkit for working with online instructors and students. This is part of a series of online discussions and programs brought to you by the ACRL University Library Section's Professional Development Committee. I am Jason Martin, chair of the committee, and I'll be moderating this program. This is one of an ongoing series of online programs sponsored by our committee, and at the end of the session, I'll give you some more information about upcoming programs. This session is being recorded, and when the recording is ready, we will send the link to the video to everyone who registered. The program today will consist of a mix of presentation from our panelists and also some question and answer time. So if you have a question as we go along, please post it into the chat window. I'll be collecting those questions, and when our panelists are ready, they'll answer those questions for you. Also, at the end of the program, I'm going to post a link to a very short program assessment in the chat window, so please take a few minutes to complete that once the program is over. With those announcements out of the way, I'm very happy to start today's program. We are joined today by Samantha Harlow and Kelly McCallister. Samantha is the online learning librarian at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Which houses numerous online programs and certificates. She works with library liaisons in many different subject areas to provide training on how to interact with online instructors and students and teach in their online courses, including training on LMS, instructional technology tools, and more. She works across campus to collaborate with instructional technologists, the Center for Teaching and Learning, and administrative departments to provide services to university online instructors and students. Kelly is the non-traditional student librarian assistant professor at Appalachian State University. She has over 12 years of academic experience providing library resources and services to online undergraduate and graduate students, as well as collaborating across campus to support online degrees and programs. And without further delay, I will hand it over to our two esteemed panelists.
Thanks, Jason. Can everyone hear me? If I just see like one person in the chat say yes, then I'm gonna keep going. Okay, great. This, as Jason said, this is a librarian toolkit for working with online instructors and students. I am the online learning librarian. He gave a great introduction. And Kelly, do you want to introduce yourself?
So hi, I am Kelly McCallister. I'm from Appalachian State University.
Great. So just before we kind of get going with the recording, if in the chat, can you just let us know briefly one thing you want to learn from attending this webinar? And I know that I recognize some of the names on here that some of you are online learning librarians, but we definitely made this just to kind of talk about different ways you can interact with online instructors and students. So if you feel like you're already an expert in it, you can tell us like your favorite thing to do with about working with online instructors and students.
Or even a favorite tool that you like to use.
Favorite tool, yeah. Just really quickly, and we'll review the chat.
This is the frantic typing part. All right, Sam, you ready to keep going?
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to assume that hopefully everyone can hear me, right? Because no one put anything in the chat.
I can hear you. I am noticing that there's a lot of hands going up from the
Yeah,
viewers. I don't know what that's about, but
Okay.
and so I just want to make sure that other people besides panelists can hear me before I move on. A lot of people have their hands raised, so I'm just wondering if there's something going on technically. So Jason, do you think I should just keep going? Because I'm not hearing anyone chat, but I'm seeing a lot of people raise their hands.
So I'm hoping can let me see. Can anyone hear me? Or was it just Mariel that everyone could hear? Just please, if you can hear me, type in the chat box. Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and let me get in contact with Mariel, and you'll want to just keep going with your presentation.
Okay. So Kelly, do you want me to continue or?
Yeah, sure. Let's go for it. I'll move us on to the next slide.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, just interrupt quick. I just received some emails saying that the chat is disabled for the participants. That's why no one's chatting. So please continue, and I'll get in touch with Mariel about fixing that.
Okay. So that makes me feel better that at least people can hear me.
You guys, there's nothing worse than hearing crickets in an online.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going crazy. Sorry.
I was starting to feel super lame just now.
So we'll keep going, and just yeah, that makes me feel better. Okay.
Woo, all right.
Hear me. Okay. So just to keep it going, the reason why Kelly and I wanted to do this is that online learning is growing, especially in higher education. So more and more students are taking not just online programs, but at least taking an online course, which means it's super important for librarians to be a part of this. Even if you're not a liaison to an online program, or your school isn't like, jumping on board quite yet, they probably will soon. And probably your students have some experience with it or will shortly. So here's just some big numbers to throw at you. So almost 6 million people as of 2015 took at least one distance education course or online course. So that's increasing every year. And this is from 2015. Remember, this is about 3 years ago. And then the statistic at the bottom just shows that only 30% as of 2015 of academic leaders report that their faculty accept the value and legitimacy of online education, which means 70% question it. So I think, again, it's important for us as librarians, since, again, even more librarian programs are going online, to kind of show the legitimacy of this and to participate in this. So another thing I wanted to bring up that we don't have time to kind of like go over in detail today is if you go to the distance learning library services, the standards, the ACRL standards for distance learning library services, it talks a lot about how it's important for us to provide equal services to all students, and of course that includes online students. So learning about this is a great thing. So I just saw in the chat that the chat is working again. So since we're back, you can now put in the chat to what you want, if you want, what you want to learn from this, or if you're already an expert in online learning, which is fine, what's your favorite tool or thing about working with online students and instructors. So,
and if you're, and also if you're like me and you're just outraged by the 30% of people who don't feel online learning is valuable, shout out.
No, it's
talks about that.
It's 70%.
Oh, it's
because,
crazy.
that 30% is who believe it's
Okay,
learning.
that's right.
So, but that was in 2015. Maybe it's shifting. I know at my university, it's shifted a lot since then. So, yes. And I'm starting to see people get back in the chat. Yay. So people want to learn about innovative use of the LMS, learn about online education from an instructor's perspective. I would like to do more outreach and distance ed. Oh, we're going to talk about that. Great. Integrated in the LMS. MOOCs. That's a great thing. We're going to talk about that. How to scale information literacy classes. Ooh, interesting. How to get around formal communication channels. We're going to talk about that. Great. Okay. So we're going to kind of keep monitoring that as we go along. So the next thing we're going to talk about briefly before we kind of get into the toolkit part, the nitty gritty stuff, is talking about universal design for learning, or otherwise known as UDL, and accessibility. So the first thing is just when we talk about accessibility, at least at my institution, faculty, sometimes they get kind of worn down by accessibility. I feel like there's a lot to do, but ADA compliance is a law. So we're going to send out this slideshow after it, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail of the links and the resources for accessibility. But this one right here is a link to an EDUCAUSE article about ADA compliance for online course design. And I think it does a good job of kind of going over the tips and tricks and what you can do with each learning object. So that's just the accessibility side. And UDL is not just about, accessibility in terms of, visual impairments and audio impairments, but it's also about reaching people at all learning levels. So, you probably all have seen this presentation, this picture before, but it's equality versus equity. So, you can provide the same thing, but that's not necessarily equity. So UDL is about reaching all kinds of learners, and it's not just about reaching people with visual impairments and audio impairments, but it's also different learning styles, learning styles as well. So some people are saying they're not seeing the screen. Is that true? I see one person saying that. Are other people seeing or sharing? Okay, other people can see it. Okay, sorry. Okay, so universal design for learning, minimizes barriers and maximizes learning. And this video right here, again, when you look at it later, is a quick little 5-minute video of UDL at a glance. So I do recommend doing that later, looking at that later. So the last thing to talk about is UDL is really about providing multiple means in terms of multiple means of media, instruction, learning objects, et cetera, about representation, action and expression, and engagement. So when I think of UDL, I think there's the important thing is that it's something with pedagogy we've been talking about a long time, but it's also important to do this in online course design while you're creating online objects, when you're thinking about creating library tutorials, it also connects to what the framework, the ACRL framework is already trying to do. But it's just the idea that don't just provide all text, don't just provide all audio, don't just do lectures of yourself on video. Students learn in different ways, and they come from a lot of different backgrounds. Like at UNCG, we do have a lot of, first generation students, and we're a highly diverse university. So you need to think about it, again, just beyond accessibility.
Right, and Sam has provided some really great websites, which we're going to show you in an additional slide, that gives you some tools and some things for you to physically go to and help with this issue. So Sam comes from UNCG, which is a much bigger institution in terms of their distance education and online learning than Appalachian. Now, in Appalachian, we are in Boone, North Carolina, in western North Carolina in the mountains, and we have a lot of really interesting connectivity issues here. We have neighborhoods that have high-speed internet. We have neighborhoods that simply have dial-in. We have neighborhoods that have just satellite, which even on a clear day with no wind doesn't work very well. And I even live in a neighborhood where there is no internet whatsoever. So it provides some serious challenges on how to provide for your DE and online students. So the section that I want to talk about is kind of creating virtual spaces and communities. So we know, because most of us, work with distance education, we work with online, that isolation is a big issue. Appalachian, like I said, we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. We're isolated. It's almost like our campus culture is isolated, so it gives us kind of an in on the isolation culture of the virtual world. So here at Appalachian, there's lots of different ways that we try to connect in the virtual space, and I think as librarians, we've seen more and more that web conferencing seems to be this really great tool in connecting in the virtual space. And all of us, obviously, we're in a webinar, so we're used to web conferencing. But there's a lot of different web conferencing systems out there that you may want to consider using in your own library. If you have a great budget, Zoom is good, GoToWebinar is good, Adobe Connect's great, WebEx. If you don't have a big budget, Google Hangouts, Skype, there's a Big Blue Button. There's quite a few systems out there that you can kind of evaluate and see if it's something that you would want to use for yourself. There are many uses for web conferencing systems that I've learned in my personal experience. Professional development, again, here we are in a professional development webinar learning about these things, but most of us have experienced using web conferencing in committee meeting space. I know with ACRL, more and more of the committees that I'm on, we're meeting virtually instead of flying to ALA Midwinter or ALA Big Annual Conference or ACRL. Meeting online has just made things a lot easier, especially for those of us that don't have much of a travel budget, if at all. Providing online workshop series are becoming more and more popular for online students. We here at Appalachian, we have an online workshop series. I know Sam's got one too over at UNCG. They're super easy to create and market, and we open them to all of our students, both online, on campus, faculty, even to some alumni. It's a kind of a cheap and easy way to get our information out there. And they're recordable, which is nice because then we can also turn our recorded and archived workshops into online learning objects. We use our Zoom meeting for reference and consultation because, like I said, you might be manning the chat at the reference desk sometimes, or you're manning the chat in your office, and you get this really complicated question from a student who would be so much easier if you could just see their screen, right? Because you said, oh, so what are you looking at? What does it say? What is the error message? Click this link, click this link. I find if I send them a Google Hangouts link or I send them a Zoom link, we can share screens and I can see exactly what the issue is super fast, and I can provide help and consultation that way. Plus, a lot of times web conferencing systems will allow you to record. So if you were walking a student through how to access this database to do this search, you can record it. The student can take that away with them. They have it. It's pretty good. At Appalachian State, our students, staff, and faculty, all of us have our own Zoom account. I know we're extremely lucky. That's not always the case in other schools, but the students have access to a Zoom account. So during their orientation, especially with my distance education and my online graduate students, I say, hey, you have a Zoom room. Create your own study space. Study rooms together. You guys, for those of you that are off campus and you can't drive and get together at the library, or there's no room in the library because we're limited to 25 physical spaces, why don't you log into your Zoom account, send out a link, and all of you can meet together, work together, share screens, archive, record, everything. It's become a really cool tool that people not necessarily made that connection that web conferencing can be used that way. Google Hangouts is another great option too, again, if you're budget-minded. And of course, professional development. Sam and I shamelessly use our accounts to provide professional development webinars for our members here in North Carolina and beyond. So the uses for web conferencing system are endless. So if you are considering yourself to use web conferencing for your facility, for your populations, again, I highly recommend you just conduct a needs assessment first and foremost. Get a piece of paper, get some colleagues, get some folks in the room, and try to figure out exactly what you want to use it for. I know at Appalachian, when we were conducting a needs assessment for replacing Blackboard Collaborate, which is what we had in the past, we knew we wanted 24-hour tech support. I mentioned those connectivity issues that we have here, which makes us a little unusual. We definitely wanted some recording and archival options so that we can share these with our faculty and our students, not just to build a how-to video page, but we also wanted to be able to embed the videos into our systems here. We wanted automated email for registration, surveys, and assessment because we all know how hard it is to try to copy and paste 250 emails into one email to send out to get information out. Breakout rooms was really important, and chat options and webcams. So your needs assessment may be a little simpler and maybe more complicated, but you certainly want to kind of figure out what it is you want your web conferencing system to do for you. And then I would recommend taking advantage of the free trials. So again, at Appalachian, what we did was we narrowed down 3 specific web conferencing tools that we thought we would like to use. We created a focus group which consisted of faculty, students, and staff to have them kind of play around with it. We provided ongoing training opportunities to not only get people used to the systems, but to also take away some of that anxiety about using a new system. The system that we used before was kind of wonky, it lagged, it didn't work all the time. People just didn't want to even deal with the idea of a new one. So we wanted to make sure that people were comfortable. And again, we're lucky, we had a great budget, but we didn't start out that way. When I was looking into systems like this here at Belk Library, I went ahead and got a 1 subscription where it was just mine, and then I just shared it with my colleagues. And we used that for a semester to see how we felt. But the free trials are great because it does give you a taste of what the system can do. You get the 24-hour tech support. These companies want your business, so they're going to work with you. So I highly recommend trying that because it's a great way to save yourself money, and also just win-win. If you have a focus group of faculty, students, and staff, you can justify that in your budget. Hey, these folks said they love it, they want to use it. So getting more buy-in, getting more collaboration, it always helps with budgets because we all know how fun those can be. So you picked your online web conferencing system.
Hey, Kelly, sorry to interrupt you. There were a couple of questions about
great.
synchronous learning. So do you want to kind of cover those just a little bit before we move on, just for the sake of time?
Yeah, absolutely.
So someone asked about free options like a Google Hangout, and I did want to say that we're a Google for Education school, and Google Hangout is really good for like one-on-one consultations with online students, but it's not great necessarily for this kind of programming. And someone mentioned Screen Leap, so that's a good idea, like look into that. But I do kind of wanted to emphasize Kelly's idea of that if you are working with online students more and more, it is good to think about kind of pushing your university to invest in something like this, and to do a kind of committee and look at it and kind of, and as a librarian to try to be a part of that, to talk about how the library could use it. And in terms of programming, someone asked about incentives. And Kelly, you can talk about that, but we make our webinars for students and faculty short, and we record them because it's just, unless you want to give them something, we can't obviously provide them food or, like gift cards or anything like that. Sometimes we'll try to run like a gift card incentive at the beginning of the year to try to get people to sign up more, but short and recorded seems to be the best for us because our recording stats are always better than necessarily like our attending stats.
Right.
Do you have anything, Kelly? Sorry.
Oh, no, that's perfect.
Okay.
So any other questions about web conferencing or? Because again, it's kind of new. Oh, branded apparel's good. Another thing too that could be kind of, it's kind of incentive is I'm creating a series for my distance education graduate students. I'm trying to create a professional development opportunity for them. So I'm sending out a call for proposals with the DE students and here, present your paper, present your work, because we all know we have to, not only do we have to get our education, but we have to get experience, and we have to try to present, we have to try to publish. So I've been trying to offer, I started out a pilot of trying to offer professional development webinars for the DE students to sign up for and present themselves. And that might be a good way to get some buy-in and to get some collaboration with departments, because I know a lot of faculty have that issue. They want to help their grad students, but they only have so many hours in a day to help co-write a paper or work on a presentation. So if you can provide a professional development opportunity for those students, that's another way that you can get students to attend. And to answer your question, Amy, they are. When we actually go back and we look at the Google Analytics, because we save all of our videos on YouTube, we get watches. We get many, many watches after the webinar has occurred. Also, we share the link with faculty and they post it in, we have what's called As You Learn. It's kind of our LMS system that we use here. They post those and then the students are able to go back and watch them. So if the students were not available or were not able to watch them live, they always go back to the archived version. Thank you. So this kind of segues into online instruction. So online instruction is both asynchronous and synchronous. I mean, I think we can all agree to that. Most of us have used LibGuides. We're involved within the LMS, which Sam was definitely going into a little more detail about that. Polling, Google Forms, learning objects, videos, infographics. There's all kinds of different ways now we can offer online instruction. And it's interesting, in my experience, I've used all of these for years and years, but there's nothing like having some sort of face-to-face type of instruction that seems to work really well with the DE students. And so that's, again, where web conferencing came into play, where we can all kind of see each other on our webcams. We can all talk together. I mean, it's funny, I give out orientations and I'm watching them sleep because they tend to be pretty late at night when we've all worked full-time days and it's 7 o'clock at night and we're now going over library skills. But they really like that being able to see each other aspect, which is also very helpful. But Sam, you've had some great success with Google Forms. Would you like to share?
Yeah, I use Google Apps. Again, we're a Google for Education school, and I use Google Apps throughout my synchronous teaching. I teach a course online, and I'm embedded in a lot of courses, and I do a lot of synchronous sessions for our online programs. And I just always like to touch base with them. The Google Forms are great because you can see the results right away, and you can also keep the assessment. You can also use the Google Forms quizzing if you wanted to embed those in LibGuides or, grade it later and integrate it with your LMS. Polling is also something that I use a lot. There's a lot of different polling software, and if you guys are interested, I do a lot of training on that, so I can provide you links to some guides about some free tools. We use things like Socrative, Mentimeter, things like that, but again, little things to keep them engaged. Webinars and meetings we kind of talked about, but yeah.
Yeah. So creating online learning objects is also very important. It is a big pivotal part of our job. And it's funny, we're not just creating the online learning objects for the online students. We're also taking into consideration all of our campus students and campus faculty that also use it. Here's a big list of, thank you, Sam. This is awesome. You actually covered most of the ones I could think of. But these are all of the kind of systems that are out there. But I highly recommend for these, use your student workers. Use your student workers. These students have grown up using this stuff. They are very familiar with this stuff. If you are like me, you are one person who is liaisoning to several different departments. You don't have the time to create all these. Get a student worker to work on it. There is lots and lots in the literature about students learning from other students. Like I said, most of them are experts because they've grown up using this stuff. They create these highly creative and seriously awesome videos. I remember when I was the library director down at Full Sail, so shout out to all you Florida people. So jealous about your weather right now. I had students who were game art majors, they were show pro and film majors, so they would create these huge, elaborate, epic library tutorials that students actually watched and wanted to learn from, and it was great. And it gave them something they could put in portfolio. It gave me a bunch of super cool learning objects that I could share that I didn't have to create myself. Again, and of course I had to look at it all to make sure that they didn't go nuts and that they, presented everything right as they were supposed to. But again, there are just so many different systems out there and things that you could use to create these. But definitely, use your student workers. They're great. I'm lucky. I get to work with a bunch of different librarians. And so we're always trying to come up with different ways that we can make our how-to stuff relevant. And we also know that you have to replace these a lot, especially if you have a whole tutorial on how to use a database and then the database changes their whole system and then your old one's kaput. So take advantage of these systems that we've got listed because they're pretty good. And most of them I'm sure you're using already. Oh, so Sam, this is the accessibility. You want to talk to this? Because that was...
Yeah, so we talked about accessibility some, and in this, I know it might seem like a long webinar, but pretty short webinar. We don't have time to like go into it in great detail, but these are some tools that if you want to use them, they're pretty quick and easy to use, and there are also some guides. I think it's like WCAG got 2.0 guidelines are pretty good. We use them a lot in terms of checking our accessibility, and of course the WebAIM guidelines, and CAS is a great resource. So when you're making this stuff, again, accessibility isn't like just captions or just alt tags. It can be, a little bit more than that. Like think about, colors. And again, someone mentioned before, it's not learning what's the styles anymore, it's learning preferences, and that's great. Someone did just ask, what is H5P? H5P is a free online interactive, you can create interactive tools. It's open source. I'm gonna throw the link into here. We did, in our professional development webinars that Kelly did, have a whole webinar about it where someone, a librarian, talked about it, and it's great. I can throw the link into this to this Google slide that I'll share with you guys, so you should check it out. Another thing that, in terms of, and they also are really great with accessibility. The librarian who spoke on it showed that on their guides, they talk about how every interaction in the modules, what's accessible and what's not, and almost all of them are. And it's free. And it's free. And it's open source, so you can also modify the code, for your own using if you need to. Right now it doesn't, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but it doesn't have like a LMS integration, but it's coming.
Yeah, John, you're right. Free is great.
Yeah, free.
So instructional design is becoming bigger and bigger. And again, I think, Sam, I'm going to have you address this because you do this way better than I do in terms of.
Yeah. So, I was just at a someone, and one of the things they wanted to learn about professional development things. So, and someone just said Moodle has an H5P plugin. Amazing. Yeah. And like I said, I think other LMSs are jumping on board that. But so instructional design, like jobs like ours, like Kelly and I's, these online learning jobs, sometimes they're called instructional design librarians, instructional technology librarians. I don't know, I've seen a lot of different things, but more and more librarians are being asked to kind of do this instructional design, build content, be in the LMS, be in these online courses. So if you want to learn more about that, here's a MOOC at the top that's creating effective online and blended courses. It's free. Again, free is great. So my institution subscribes to Quality Matters, which is a rubric that you can apply to your online courses to kind of, again, see if it's, quality in terms of accessibility, how you're engaging with your students and that kind of thing, how you're designing your course. So I have a link to the guide to the, basics of the rubric there, but I would check it out. And there's a course that you can take for, even if your institution isn't a Quality Matters institution, you can pay like a couple $100 and take it if you're interested. And then of course, conferences, we're in an ACRL webinar. So I should say ACRL, they have pre-conference workshops, all that stuff. So I just got back from the Distance Library Services Conference, the DLS conference. Kelly has been in the past. It's every other year when ACRL is not meeting. And if this is something that's growing at your institution, I would highly recommend going to this conference. It's where a lot of people who have job titles like Kelly and I get together and discuss things. There's paper presentations, there's poster presentations, all that stuff. So it's great. And then looking at non-library conferences for instructional technology topics like EDUCAUSE, there's some online learning conferences as well. They're really, they can be really expensive, but maybe if you have the budget and it's worth it for you, you can look at that. The last thing would be to get a master's or a certificate in instructional design, but that's, if you want to go really crazy with it. And then someone said it's free to go to DevLearn if you're accepted as a speaker. So that's cool.
So my question is, what are some of the online instruction tools and systems are you using? I'm curious. Just our friends in chat.
Our friends, yeah. I saw some people are using H5P. I think Lindsay might have said that.
Yeah, H5P, I just found out about it, and that is pretty awesome, especially the open source.
LibWizard is something we're looking at.
Articulate, yeah.
Storyline. We use VoiceThread here. Canvas, I'm going to talk about Canvas. We use Canvas at UNCG.
I love Camtasia.
So one thing, someone said Screencast-O-Matic. I did want to mention that, we're kind of, I liked what Kelly said about using your student workers to make videos. We're moving a lot away from making video of, databases and things like that, because they just go out of date so quickly.
Yeah,
it's hard to edit. So keep that in mind in terms of like making many different forms of online learning objects. Like videos are great. We definitely make videos, but we're kind of moving into doing more like conceptual videos where we do kind of like animations about like keyword searching or like what is citation management and things like that as well. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to dive into the learning management system part. Just go to, so someone asked, talking about getting involved more in your LMS. It just kind of depends on your LMS. So at UNCG, we use Canvas. Kelly mentioned that they use kind of their own homegrown form of As You Learn. Someone I saw through that they had Moodle on there, and someone said Blackboard. It's confusing, and it's like a maze. We moved from Blackboard to Canvas, so I have some experience with both. I've had people who use DTL, Sakai, all this different stuff. Genzabar, someone said, I don't know that one. But
no, that sounds cool.
Okay, so really a lot of what you're working in your LMS depends on your the LMS culture at your institution. So we're going to talk about this later, but I just recently did a survey to our online students and instructors, and in that survey, the students made it very clear that they wanted everything to be in Canvas. So that's the culture of our institution. So because I now know, or I have some data that shows me that our students are very happy with Canvas and they like Canvas and they're constantly connected to Canvas, then like I'm going to work really hard to make us as embedded in Canvas as possible. So some ways to do that, like in Canvas, you have people and you can add people. You can create different roles. So there's like instructor, designer, TA, student. So we created a role called librarian. So now if we're embedded in a Canvas course, students can go into the course and they see their librarian. We can then add content to the courses, make announcements, things like that. And we see announcements when they come in this way as well. So that's been great for us. We don't grade as a librarian, so if you wanted to do that in your course, which is fine, that works as well. Know how to create content for the LMS. So whatever your LMS is, learn about it. So, I mean, I know that some people have strong opinions about Blackboard, but, if your institution does use Blackboard, it's good to kind of learn how to make a folder in Blackboard and to provide it that way. If there is a commons area in your LMS, like somewhere where people can get content from, in a kind of cloud common area, then use that. In Canvas, it's called Canvas Commons, and you can put modules in there, pages in there, and then when people search for UNCG or libraries, you can see like a research methods module, and then hopefully people can use that. There's still a long way to go in terms of like getting better analytics on that, but it's good, and it's a good thing to mess around with. So LTIs are basically a new thing that's coming up with LMSs where you can embed things within an LMS, like an app, and it then works seamlessly with your LMS. So it will hook to the grade book, it will hook to the discussions, or hook to whatever you want it to do. So more and more companies like app and educational instructional technology companies are building these LTIs to work with LMSs. So if you are using some instructional technology tools that we mentioned it with, like H5P, then you can build, look at what that is. So for example, SpringShare LibGuides has an LTI that then you can integrate your LibGuides really well with your LMS. So there's some schools that are doing that. I saw a good poster at DLS of someone from Florida State, Lindsay Wharton, who builds their own LibGuides, and they look like websites, and then they ingrain, so the library's right there in the LMS. We're looking at doing that in Canvas, and but you do have to have the SpringShare CMS feature to do this. So if you can't do the LTI thing, you don't want to do other things, just find some way to incorporate your library into the LMS easily for your instructors. We're going to talk about outreach in a little bit, but being able to kind of hit your instructors right there within the LMS is definitely a great way to reach them where they're already doing the online teaching. So someone asked what LTI stands for. I always forget this. It's like learning. I don't know. I don't remember, honestly. I got to Google it. But then someone said I was embedded in several classes as a co-instructor, so I could see everything, but it was overwhelming. And yes, so how could I give personalization without getting overwhelmed? But we're going to talk about that a little bit in the outreach section. But our liaisons kind of do it how they want to do it in terms of embedding. But something I do is I'll just make an announcement at the beginning of the course, and that will be it. I won't actually be a part of every discussion. I mean, you kind of have to learn to scale yourself in terms of being involved in every LMS.
And
learning tools, interoperability. Yes, that's it. So someone says we're embedding LibGuides and Blackboards. Someone said they like the thing. Someone said, is the role feature in Canvas? Yes. If you talk to your Canvas administrators, it's just a role that they can add in the admin side of Canvas. So yeah, some people are mentioning some other thing. Okay. So Kelly is going to talk about outreach and programming. And you can keep the questions coming, and we'll try to get back to more LMS questions at the end.
So obviously the first thing everybody wants to do is they want to market to the faculty, because you get to the faculty, it will spread to the students, and you will be able to more or less market your library instruction more efficiently. So don't assume that your instructors are tech and research savvy. Most online instructors are in fact adjunct, and they are just as isolated as your students. So it's always important to reach out to those instructors individually. Like Sam mentioned, if you happen to be in the LMS and they're embedded, they will automatically see your announcements. They'll read whatever you post. We've all tried emailing, and then crickets. You never hear back from them. So that's kind of a disadvantage. But you definitely want to reach out to that instructor population in any way that you can. Offering them professional development opportunities, offering to meet with them in consultations, and giving them a brief orientation about library services and how you can help them with their class. They want to hear from you. Again, they're isolated already. Having that personal touch of reaching out is always important. Keeping marketing short and simple, because they're really busy. Most adjuncts that I know are teaching, 5 to 6 classes at part-time with no benefits. So you want to give the quick and dirty, short and easy tutorials, or brief instruction on what you can offer their classes and how you can help. And you also want to empathize with them, because adjunct professors work just as hard as the one lone librarian in the one library that helps out hundreds to thousands of students. You definitely will have a friend if you reach out to them and let them know about the resources and how you can help each other. And also keep in mind that online instructors are not always in your state. Many of them are, some might be even across the country, so you have to consider time changes and time differences and things like that when you're working with them and when you're marketing to them. And it's the same with the student population. I think we can all say it's safe to assume that most of our students don't have a lot of research experience. Let's face it, those of us that went to public schools, the library isn't the most important place anymore. I know my daughter she's a librarian's kid, and she's never even been to the library at her school, and that just horrifies me. So don't assume that they have research experience, but also keep in mind that your undergraduate students learn in a certain way, your graduate students learn in a very different way. If you work with non-traditional students, student veterans have very different research needs, transfer students have different research, distance education. Not one size does not fit all. That one shot that you do may not necessarily adapt to the other populations that you're working with. So be open and adaptable when you are working with your students and their research experience. Also with students as well, keep marketing short and simple. The funny thing is we did this huge survey at App State, and we were basically found out that students did not like getting emails. And so we don't have a way where you can email all the students at App State. So we do social media, we do app search, we do, App Sync, we go to their events, we try to do all these things to reach out to the students. And as it turns out, they just would rather get an email. We still get more turn-in, or people coming to our webinars or coming to our instruction sessions when we actually email them than when we try to do all the other things. So find the way that best works for you, and keep your marketing short and simple. And emphasize with students, because again, they're all coming in from different experiences and different backgrounds. So, don't just bombard them with library speak. And online students can feel isolated, so it's important to show them they're equal. And that's where, maybe Google Hangouts or Flipgrid or Slate or any one of those online free communities that you can work with and create can help, where you can meet with the students. Have online office hours so that students can drop in whenever they need you, at their time of need. And most importantly, do some outreach to the various departments that you work with, especially with the online department. Don't just send emails, because we've all done that. We've sent out emails and then we've never heard anything back. I find I make a lot of friends in networking if I just become members of department committees. So again, I work with the non-traditional students here. So I work with the DE students and the student veterans and the transfer students. And so I just volunteer to become members of their department committees. And this way I'm meeting with them, I'm talking with them. Because I don't have access to all the student emails, because we're sitting next to each other in a room, I'll tell them about this webinar that I'm providing or that this new database that we've offered, and they will let the students know. They'll send it out in their newsletters and their emails. So that's a way that I can get around not having all of the access information of the students that attend here. Volunteer and go to the department-based events. I know that, if you're a DE, I go to some of the recruiting sessions, especially if they're nearby. Go to the community colleges with the DE folks and hang out with them. It's important to see, because, the students are not necessarily thinking about library resources when they're choosing a school, but their parents are. So talk to them, let them see that there's a library and there's a librarian who can help. And if nothing else works, make one friend within the department and offer to work on a project or a presentation or a publication together, whatever it is that they need help with. Because if nothing, they're like you, they're trying to do the job of 10 and they're under a short amount of time and there's a lot to do. But if you just get one friend within the department who can help send out those emails, help market whatever it is that you're offering or what services you want to provide, that's the best thing you can do. And then, if nothing else, you got someone to have lunch with. So outreach to the departments, it's really, really crucial. I think personally, I think it's even more crucial than meeting with the faculty in terms of, and I am faculty, so I'm probably going to get berated for saying that, but I feel that departments have more of a relationship with students, the advisors and the enrollment counselors and the financial aid, and that they would be, if they have a powerful positive experience with the library, that they will share that with the students. So I find that that's really important. So in my experience, so that's definitely something to try if you're just frustrated and you've tried everything else. So some outreach examples, and again, we've all done this. So if you've got any examples that aren't on the slide, please throw them out there. But email campaigns, even though people claim to hate getting emails, they're still the most effective, at least in my experience. Newsletters are great. If you don't have time to write them, get that student worker who's amazing at Photoshop, or get a subscription to Canva. It is my new best friend. I use it all the time. LibGuides, Google Sites, videos, using web conferencing, again, Google Hangouts or Zoom for face-to-face interactions, and share your ideas with your colleagues, with each other. Share your ideas in the chat. Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Sam. Canva is my favorite. But any examples that you can provide would be great, because I'm always looking for some new stuff. And then programming as well. It's important to create programming toward online instructions and students, because they want to feel important. They want to feel singled out, because in a good way. But also their needs are very different from the traditional freshmen that are coming in. The online instructors' professional development needs are very different than the on-campus faculty that you may work with. Same with the students. So webinars are always fun. Online clubs, book clubs, subject-specific clubs are fun. Host a virtual conference. Once you get a web conferencing system, it's easy. In fact, I just wrote about this. Web conferences are a lot of fun, and they're cheap. You don't have to worry about buying food and the venue and travel and hotels and getting people there. You just pay for lunch for the volunteers, and you're able to produce all of these sessions and tracks and offer a virtual conference for your online students to give those grad students a chance to present, to get their stuff out there. Orientations, virtual meetings, brown bag lunches, any other programming examples that you have used or are interested in, throw that out in the chat box, because I'm always looking for new ideas. But just be creative and open, and it's all about the spirit of collaboration. because it's going to make your job a lot easier, especially if you are the one librarian in the library. Make friends within the one lady who runs the work study office, or the loan transfer services person, or the DE instructor who lives on the other side of the state. You know, get together, come up with some ideas, because you'll help each other out, because we're all working toward the same goal. And this slide you'll probably love. These are all of the tools and inspiration. So we mentioned Camtasia, Canva, Kapow, Google Docs. These are just some really great tools and some inspiration that you can use in terms of either building your department or improving it or adding to it. So any questions or comments about outreach?
There were some comments about people saying, you know, like that they get some online students who don't necessarily have any kind of tech experience and they've been away for a long time. And I did want to emphasize that that is 100% correct. That, you know, that just because someone's taking an online program or an online course does not mean they're doing it because they have a lot of tech experience. They're typically doing it because of the flexibility, you know, in terms of fitting it into their schedule. Like maybe they're working full time, maybe they have a family. So keep that in mind in terms of your instruction and your marketing. Because I went to a really good thing from at the DLS conference I was just at from Carrie Girton about, you know, emphasizing with your marketing, and it was really good. So always keep that in mind as well. This is available in archived format. And if the chat's not available, I've been trying to write down what people are saying, and we'll add it to there. Someone's asking about conducting virtual office hours, and someone said that they're looking at piloting it. In WebEx, you have a room where it like provides you a link, a consistent link. I do use that consistent link that people can meet me for office hours sometimes, depending on the department and the needs. So you're welcome to email me and we can talk about that. I've had various success with it. I also do consultations asynchronously through Google Docs and also as a through WebEx. So I know for the sake of time, we're running out of time. So I do want to just like quickly go over assessment, but I'm not going to harp on it so that there is some time for some conversation at the end. Kelly, you want to go to the next slide? And we'll just kind of quickly go through this.
Got it.
Online students feel isolated, and including online instructors and students into your assessment, what you're already doing is going to make a huge difference. So we can go to the next slide. So incorporating them into your course and instruction, your LMS platforms have assessment analytics in them. Look into that. Again, like Kelly said, make friends with other departments, make friends with your IT department, make friends with the people who are running the analytics, and try to get that in there. Importantly, also try to track what's happening in your LMS. I send a Google form out to all my liaisons and make them fill it out, listing every course they're in Canvas or like whatever they do in Canvas. And then I'll try to go back in and look at that data and kind of compare it to, you know, see how it's increasing from semester to semester, seeing how the students are responding, seeing how we can improve. We did do a survey, like I mentioned before, to online instructors and students, and that was great, and we learned a lot. And one thing we learned is that online instructors and students think that all they need is Google. So keep that in mind. And, you know, so now our marketing is going to be quick, and we're going to try to get them to see that, like, you know, the differences between our stuff and Google, and, like, you know, some information literacy campaigning that we're going to do. And then Kelly's going to talk about this too, but we're starting to include our online students in our focus groups through WebEx. We're recording the focus groups, and then we can code those recordings.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your focus group, you want to have, you know, contact advising, contact enrollment, contact those staff that meet with the students on the front lines. Get their input, not just the students and the faculty, because again, they hear all kinds of things that, you know, we may never make those kind of connections. So be open to your focus group, and then just have online meetings all the time, and include your DE faculty and your DE folks as well.
And then another thing is, like, we do, some people are talking about chat on there. I do assessment of our chat, and I do environmental scans of our chat for the online learning students by searching for, chat transcripts that have that code, those words in it that, like different online programs and things they might ask about, like ebooks and streaming, and, if they say distance, things like that. So we do track that, and we do try to improve and do that. And we use library help for chat, and we have it open until at least midnight on most nights. And that is a huge feature that our virtual students use. So if you don't already have that at institution, I definitely recommend it.
It's not just our virtual students, we have students that are in the library that use it. They don't want to walk to the reference desk.
So the last thing is just that, part of the reason why we did this webinar is that, jobs like ours are growing, but maybe you don't have an online learning librarian to help you with this stuff and to, build you online learning objects and do this stuff. So the more you track this stuff, like what you're doing, what your needs are, the more you can then argue for resources like chats and virtual meeting tools and things like that, but also maybe a new position. Like, like this is data you can bring to your dean, bring to stakeholders, and do it that way. So this is kind of the end, and just because we have like about 5 minutes left, I do want to have people have time to ask questions. And I know it kind of went long because we had a lot of good conversations. So yeah, I do send the Google form, and you can follow up with me, Dolores. Samantha, yeah. I'll throw my email in chat. But does anyone have any questions that we tried to address them as well. I saw that a lot of people wanted to talk about OER and copyright. We did not have time to cover that, but I will say that we do, at our institution, we're working on putting our OER materials in stuff like H5P and Canvas Commons. So look at doing stuff like that. I'm gonna I'm lucky to work with a great scholarly communication librarian who does a lot with OER. So there's our guide on OER. And the big thing that I do as the online learning librarian is I try to work with our faculty to learn how to implement OER materials in our courses. And we do provide a mini grant to our faculty where we offer them a reward, an incentive. We get money from our school. Our provost is very supportive of it, and we give them $1,000 or so if they use OER materials, if they get rid of textbooks and use OER materials in their courses, and it has gone amazing. So if you want to email me about that, I can hook you up with that information and we have a lot of great data about how much money that's saving our students. Copyright is a huge issue. We could do a whole webinar on that. So again, we just didn't cover that too much, but I'm going to shoot this scholarly communication tab on copyright, and then we just kind of work with our students, our instructors one-on-one about copyright. So are there any other questions? And Kelly, do you want to say anything wrapping up? I'm sorry, this went kind of fast.
No, that's fine.
All right, well, thank you so much to our great presenters here, Samantha Harlow and Kelly McCallister. That was a terrific presentation. And I also want to thank Elois Sharp and Marielle Colbert from ACRL. And just a reminder that we're going to send the link out to this recording session when it's available, probably tomorrow. And also, please take a few minutes to complete the program assessment that I'm sending out right now. And was there anything else, any last words, Samantha or Kelly, you wanted to add?
No, I mean, thank you guys for coming during a very busy time of year.
Yeah.
I know everyone's really busy.
Great, thank you. And this is the ACRL ULS Professional Development Committee. This is our last program of this sort of fiscal year, and July 1st begins our new year. And we'll have a brand new chair, and Laura Garapi, and we'll be sending out as a committee some calls for participation. If you have any great ideas that you would like to present with us, please take some time to fill out that form when it's available. And also in the program assessment form, there's an area where you can leave suggestions for future programs you'd like to see. But once again, thank you to our presenters. Thank you to everyone who came and viewed this and participated. Your great questions. And thank you again to ACRL. Have a great day.
Thanks. So Jason, are you still there?
Yes.
Do you want me to send you the Google Slides?
Yes, please. I was going to ask you that. We're still recording, but yeah, if you could send me the the
I'll put
slides.
it in
That'd
the
be great.
chat in case anyone's still there, but
Okay.
I'll also email it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll sign off.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Are
Yeah.
you good, Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you, Jason, for having us.
Hey, thank you. It was a really great presentation. It was very good.
Yeah, I enjoyed hearing what everyone said. It was fun for me.
Good. So, all right.
I'll talk
Bye.
to you later, Kelly.
Bye, Jason. Thank you.
Bye.
And I'll definitely put a good word in for your friend.
Yeah, she's terrific. She's terrific. So,
Bye.
bye.